Has debate jargon become too much of a chore? Does every round you enter leave you wanting to know more? Well, look no further because one clap is the key. It's time for Professor Graham and Kevin's ABCs. Hello, debaters. Welcome back to another episode of Professor Graham's ABCs of Debate. I'm Professor Graham, here with my pal Kevin, and today the word of the day is going to be overview. So without further ado, let's jump into it. Overviews are quite simple in theory, but people tend to overdo them, I think. The purpose of an overview is usually just to do one thing: summarize a position. Now, people have different ideas as to what a summary is, and I think the best rule of thumb to follow is who your judge is. If you have a lay judge, quickly summarizing your position and then getting into impact calculus seems optimal, as they usually want a full explanation of what you're talking about, because every time you say, "on to the BizCon DA," they tend to get a little confused. Human psychology says that people pay extra attention to the first thing you say, so make your overview count and explain well, but not absurdly thoroughly. If you have a more experienced judge, the overview should be mostly reserved for stellar impact calculus and not much more, because they will probably already understand your arguments. However, you should always include impact calculus for the overview, no matter who your judge is, because it's still a part of the story. Judge talk aside, remember to be efficient with your information. Your overviews should cover the necessary info, but it should do so in an efficient manner. Thus, even when you have a lay judge who wants an explanation of your position, even wasting more than 3 or 4 sentences talking about your position is a little excessive. Efficiency, explanation, and impact calculus. That's how you do an overview. Stop making unnecessary arguments in your overview. If you're spending the time to explain your link and then trying to answer different no-link arguments across the flow in multiple places, covering it all in the overview just means that none of your answers are specific to what they were actually saying, and it makes it much easier for them to extend their specific arguments because it's clear you didn't answer them. Likewise, saying that you're gonna use it to cross-apply arguments is also silly, because you can still do that later in the flow when answering the actual arguments. Other people doing bad habits is not something we want to replicate. The most prominent example I see of absurdly long overviews is usually in the one-off K debate with more inexperienced debaters, or counterplans where the team feels like they desperately need to explain how the states can tax their citizens, and DAs with 45 impact modules. They rely too much on their overview and do all the internal link explanation work above, but don't answer any arguments later on in the flow, and just end up with a 4-minute overview and half-baked answers on the line-by-line. Think about it in terms of time trade-off. If you explain literally the entire story of your position, and then move down the flow, half answering arguments and then saying, cross-apply what we said from the overview, you make the judge's life ridiculously hard. What part of the overview are you referencing? It was 4 minutes long. What exactly am I cross-applying? Because you covered every part of the story. Why am I doing the work here to fill out my flow? Because you're too lazy to move your internal link debate on the part of the flow that your opponents are actually contesting you on. All of these questions will go through your judge's mind when you do something like this, and every second they think about how hard their life is a second that they're not writing down your arguments. I cannot stress this enough. Don't ever do an underview. Don't even do the gross thing where you say, "I now concede the rest of my time," or "thus I urge a strong vote in affirmation." In all of these instances, you hurt me because you're literally wasting time. It did not matter if you said that vote in affirmation line because my decision was already going to be determined by the actual work in your speech, not your plead for pity points while the timer is going off. Beyond that, I will say anecdotally, underviews seem quite pointless to me. Imagine you're reading a 5-paragraph essay. The intro tells you what you're going to be reading about, and the 3 body paragraphs are the actual argument. When was the last time that you read a conclusion expecting to learn something that you hadn't already read? Never, right? Well, now imagine some kid just spouted off some nonsense about nuclear war being caused by fish. You probably were pretty tuned in, but the second they say, "in conclusion," you feel like you can probably tune out because you already heard the whole argument. Don't give your judge the chance to tune out and fill your speech with actual content. I've watched so many rounds with a variety of judges, and this is one of the main things that I pay attention to. 10 out of 10, myself included, we do not care about what you're saying the moment we know that you're wrapping up, because you're just rehashing things that you've already said, but in a less organized fashion. So quite simply, the pen goes down. I love overviews. They're so awesome when they're done well. Isn't that right, Kevin? Hater? I hardly know her. Hey, thanks again for watching today's episode of Professor Graham's ABCs of Debate. As always, I'm Professor Graham, and that's my pal Kevin. Yeah, if you ever need any help with debate stuff at all, my email should be right up here. Just make sure you CC your coach. I'll get back to you as soon as I possibly can with any debate tips that you might need. I'll drop that knowledge on you. Bam. Thanks for watching. It's been a pleasure. See y'all later.